The worst part of reviewing the E2Ks, the final audio E2Ks, is that I'm going to have to review the E1K and the E500 after this, because comparing them with this IM, this is basically the GOAT. GOAT meaning greatest of all the final audio budget IMs. That's what the T stands for. In this review, I'm gonna review the final audio E2000. I'm gonna compare these later with the E500, E1000, and E3000. And also I'm gonna compare this with the four juggernauts of Chi-Fi IMs, which are Chi-Fi brand IMs, which are Tin Hi-Fi, Blonde, Moondrop, and KZs. Yeah, the Tin Hi-Fi is going to be represented by the Tin T2. So why Tin T2s? Because Tin T2 is better than the Tin T2 Plus, the Tin T2 Pros, in my opinion, and I can't compare them with the Tin T4s because that's on a different price point. I can't also compare them with the P1s because that's also in another price point. The Blonde's going to be represented by the Blonde 03s, because comparing the Blonde 03s with the Blonde 05s, the Blonde 03s still takes the victory for me, for my preference, and in my opinion, as a general IM. The Moondrop is going to be represented by the Moondrop SSR, because a lot of people like them. I personally don't. I don't understand why, but a lot of people like them. And I don't think there is any other Moondrop IMs at this price point which can compete with the other IMs right here. And also from the KZs, of course, I have the S10 Pros. Some might think that the ZXX is better, or the S10 Pro X. I don't know what's new, but in the KZ lineup, but I haven't got my hands at those, so oops, sorry. I'm not going to compare this with them. Okay, let's get to the review of the E2Ks. Build wise, it's very similar with the E3Ks. If you haven't watched the E3Ks and you're very curious about what these things can do, go watch that video and go back to this video after, because I made a huge spoiler of this video in that video. Oh yeah. The only thing that's different in the build with the E3K is the housing. The E3Ks is, I think it's stainless steel. It's quite a bit heavier than the E2Ks in weight. However, it's still, I think it's still made of metal, unlike the E1K and the E500, which is made of plastic. The cable is also softer than the E3K and in the E2K, the E1K, I'm sorry, and the E500. But they look very, and they feel very spaghetti-like cable. They tangle a bit, but don't tangle that much, not as much as something like the KZ cable or the Blonde cable. This is it's not very jank in my opinion. Yeah, I don't see them breaking anytime soon, and I've never seen the final audio cables broke before, but I've seen a lot of problems with the driver. That's the main problem of the final audios. They have shit quality control issues, and I felt that firsthand. If you won't notice this, the E1K that's here right now is different from the ones in the E3K video. The E3K video's E1K is this one. It's the Japanese version, the green E1K, which is a superior color because of green. And I actually bought this. This is the third one I bought, because the first one, that one's Jason's unit, if you remembered. The first one I bought was the exact same color as this one also. Second one's also exact same color, but they don't have any bass. It's just nothing under 100 hertz. Below, nothing, just empty silence and static. And what happened with those two E1000s before these. These are pretty similar with the Jason's E1K. So yeah, you got that one here, but that's what's wrong with the what do you call it, a quality control issues with the final audios. The ear tips is the same, it's good, it's very solid. Okay, I like the ear tips. Final ear tips are known to be great. Yeah, the sound quality. Now with the let's go to the trifecta as usual. The bass is noticeably boosted. It's not as bloated as something like the E3Ks, but if you're looking for a very neutral and natural bass, you'll definitely would not get it from here, because these are not a natural sounding IM in the bass region. You'll definitely hear a very boosted mid bass and a bit on the upper sub bass region, about 70 hertz or so. But below that, it rolls off pretty quickly. So if you're looking for that extreme sub bass extension, you would not get it here. And that's the only problem I have with this IM. That and a little bit of problem in the mid-range, which we are going to get to. No, not the mid-range, the treble, the lower treble range, the mid-treble range, yes, which we're going to get to later. You'll get a pretty decent rumble. Bass texture here is also pretty solid, similar to the E3Ks. The bass seems a bit faster here because of the less bloated sound signature, so it's textured a bit better here than the E3Ks, in my opinion. The kick and slam, while not as punchy or as strong as the E3Ks, it still packs quite a punch here because of that elevated mid bass. For mid range, these have, in my opinion, a very neutral sound in the mid range. While the E3K compared to these are very muted sounding and very muddy sounding compared to these have quite a bit more Pina gain than the E3Ks. They have a bit not as much gain as the E1Ks, but they have proper amount, if you can say it like that. It's very inoffensive, nothing grainy, nothing wrong with it in the mid-range. Definitely very detailed, also like the E3Ks. Maybe more detailed because these don't suffer as much bass bloat as the E3Ks. So if you're looking for that micro and macro detailing, these don't tend to not get as covered by the lower mid-range and the upper bass than the E3Ks. So yeah, but if you want something more with more bass than these, yeah, E3Ks basically these with more bass and less treble. And for the treble, In my opinion, these have almost perfect treble. These have almost perfect amount of treble. I would prefer a bit more energy up there, just a bit more energy. I mean, if perfect at this price range, of course. And also wish to have this to have a bit more air frequencies also. But everything is very smooth. Nothing is offensive. You can listen to these while you sleep, and you won't get shocked, I guess, by your alarm clock ringing in the morning with these things on. So these sound very inoffensive and very consumer friendly sounding, if that makes sense. It's not an extremely V-shaped consumer sound, but it's almost very decent and likable sound. That's what I meant. Very easy to love sound signature with this I am. The tonality and timbre is very excellent. To me, the tonality is better here rather than those, because a cymbal still sounds very natural here, while in the E3Ks they tend to sound a bit more muted. I compare these a lot with the E3Ks because they're very similar. So if you want to know more about these, don't forget to watch that video. Timbre wise, these sound very dynamic drivers. Nothing wrong with that. Timbre, not timbre, timbre. Nothing really wrong with that. Still very nice. The detail retrieval in general is very similar with the E3Ks. Very good in the detail region. They have a bit more treble detail than the E3Ks because they're a bit more boosted. They're definitely more air in the upper treble. The mid-range detail is very similar with the E3Ks, so yeah, it's still very good. If I say the detail retrieval is similar with the E3Ks, it's very good for the price range. The what do you call that? Soundstage and imaging. Soundstage wise, these sound very wide, very airy sound, very these things are vented, by the way. These things are like open back headphones. They're basically open back. These are holes behind these, perforated back. So these sound very open, very wide, very grand, if I might say. Where the E3K lacks the airy kind of feel of the sound. The E2Ks definitely do not disappoint at that region if you're comparing them with something like the E3Ks. The image clarity here is also better than the E3Ks. Not as much as something like the 10 T2s. Or something like more higher end, like to be honest, like something like the VA Audio Legacy 3s. Those have quite solid image clarity, surprisingly. Yes, not as much as those yet though. In the final E2K, the layering and the imaging of the E2K is very solid also. The E3K edges out a bit in the imaging and layering and separation against the E2Ks because yeah, they just are. It's a bit more clumped here, but though not on a big difference in technicalities in quality. They're very similar, but the E3K is better. Is noticeably better. Transients, the speed of the driver is quite fast. They're quite fast. They're not something like the blondes, which get muddied up easily. Though these does have The E3K does have quite a boosted bass. It doesn't get messy like these. Have a very good and very decent control to the sound, and that's what I like with final IEMs. Everything sounds neat and controlled. Yeah, I guess that's it for the review of this IEM alone, and I'm gonna compare these with all of these. Okay, just to be clear, even though that these four IEMs, the E1K, the E500 to the E3Ks, they are at a very, very different price point. It's all basically lies on what kind of signature you're looking for in an IEM. If you're looking for something that is really not boosted anywhere, very natural sounding, very neutral sounding to most ears, it's going to be the E1K. These don't have any boost in the bass region anywhere. In the bass region, have a very solid image clarity and mid-range, very nice sounding mid-range. Everything sounds very good and very natural, very controlled, very refined type of sound. The final E3K is basically the polar opposite of the E1K. These are more fun, more bassy, more powerful kick and slam, and everything is here. Though if you want something in the middle with still very natural-ish kind of sound, but you want to have that fun aspect of the music, I would recommend you to get the E2Ks. Now, what happens with the E500 is very, very interesting. This IEM in particular, I don't really like them. They are good, but I don't really like them. They don't have that treble energy that makes cymbals and anything treble oriented music instrument sounds natural, in my opinion. A lot of especially if you listen to a lot of Japanese soundtracks like Laughing Under the Sky Gaiden by Yukata Yamada, when you listen to the soundtrack Como, or I forgot what the title is, or something like Home, or the theme song of the soundtrack of the OSTs, you'll definitely feel that it's actually pretty subjective, but in my case, I feel that the E500 is very, very, very lacking in the treble region, both in the treble proper and the treble air. These have a bit more stronger bass than the E1K, and these have a noticeably better technicalities than the E1K. These are the E2K is the E500 is closer to the E2Ks in terms of technicality rather than the E1Ks, though they are supposed to be cheaper than these. So yeah, but to me they are not just the complete set for me to recommend to anyone. That's a huge spoiler for that review, which I don't know if I'm gonna cut or not on the video. I just realized it right now. And I did the E1K. I compare these a lot with the E3Ks. Now for the four juggernauts. First of all, the KZZ S10 Pros. The E2Ks is mildly V-shaped sounding. These have a bit boost in the bass and a bit boost in the treble region, while not as V-shaped as the ZS10 Pros. Everything is far more controlled here than here. I would highly recommend the E2Ks rather than the the S10 Pros, unless you're okay with a slightly wonky tonality and you want that bloated, that extra ultimate kick in the bass and that sub bass rumble, and you want all of that treble to be like as extreme as possible. That's kind of a bit too much. But if you want everything boosted, this is a very good IM. If you want everything to be boosted and everything to be forward and everything to be powerful, other than the lower mid-range and the mid-range, which some people is gonna be sensitive at that region due to the insane dip right there. So I'll still recommend this. I'm gonna recommend the E2K against this. I don't care about that one. The Blano Freeze. Now this is a more interesting comparison. I'm gonna put this in last. The Tin T2s. The Tin T2s is more similar with the E1K rather than the E2Ks. And that's gonna be a bit of spoiler in the E1K video. But the Tin T2s, I would prefer the Tin T2s over all of these IMs. In tuning wise, in tonality wise, in overall general sound wise, the technicality aspect of the soundstage, for example, the soundstage is pretty similar here. The separation and layering is actually noticeably better on the E2Ks. The treble details is better than in the T2s, while the mid-range detail is better on the E2Ks. Bass kick is surprisingly similar, though bass extension is very interesting. These are a bit more boosted in the sub bass region, so you can hear that it sounds louder. But these have a perceived more extension because it's very linear down the sub bass, if that makes sense. The sub bass is not very covered by the mid bass. That's what I am trying to say. You won't hear a very noticeable roll off here, though there is definitely roll off, but you can still hear some rumble here. You can definitely hear rumble here also though. But sometimes the mid bass kind of covers the sub bass, if that makes sense. I don't know if it makes sense or not. Though in treble region, definitely I would prefer the Tin T2s. Okay, the what do you call it? The Blano Freeze. Both of these are natural to V-shaped sounding. Both of these are almost warm. They are a bit warmer on the tilt, and warmer tilt has a bit of warmer tilt in the overall tonality. Though if you're looking for a bit more treble energy, I still get it from the blondes. But if you want more controlled bass, I'll definitely lead you towards the E2Ks. Soundstage, separation, imaging is all in the hands of E2Ks. However, if you really love the sound signature that the Blano Free gives you, then who am I to tell you to pick the E2Ks? Though in my opinion, when I go to pick either one of these, I'll pick the E2Ks like 80 to 90% of the time. That's how good the E2K really is, in my opinion. These don't have as much sub bass extension as the blondes. If you're a very sub bass type of person, basically, don't look at a lot of these IMs. They are not made for that. But if you're a very technical oriented listener, that you put technicalities on a higher percentage of how to enjoy the music, this is definitely, and you like that kind of signature, this is definitely a huge consideration for you. Okay, that's basically the review of the Final Audio E2000. I hope you liked the video. If you liked the video, click the thumbs up and subscribe for more. Don't forget to watch Jason's video. I'm gonna link it down in the description and put him somewhere right here. I don't know. Yes, he's sure to have a lot of things to say about this. A lot more things to say about this, and he prefers the E1K over these. So I think I haven't watched his video yet because it's not released yet. So yeah, so we are doing this review kind of blind, so we don't know what their opinion of these was, but I heard that he likes this more than these. So yeah, don't forget to watch this video. Okay, thanks for watching. Godspeed.